This is Ultimate Warriors, the show that explores the brutal world of combat and the fighters who rule it. In the field of martial arts, you have to be pretty special to stand out from the crowd. So, enter the boys from Brazil, known as the Gracies, who took the fight world by storm and changed the face of modern martial arts. Coming up, they are the royal family of the fight world. But what made them so special? One of them was caged with a Russian bear. We see how he got on. And we hit the beach with the diamond in the family crown, the mystical Rickson.
There's a lot of fighters out there that become part of the history. We are the history.
They have the most famous name in martial arts. The Gracies exploded onto the fight scene and dominated from the start using their own style, Gracie Jiu-jitsu, also known as Brazilian Jiu-jitsu. Members of the Gracie family have been prepared to fight anyone, anywhere in the world, to win by knockout, tap out, or their speciality, the chokeout. Let's meet Royce, Henzo and Rickson, three second-generation Gracies at the forefront of this fighting dynasty. And some of the fighters they've crushed along the way.
I would have to say that Brazilian Jiu-jitsu made the single largest impact on martial arts since Bruce Lee. And there's only one word that comes to mind when you think of Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, and that's Gracie.
Jiu-jitsu originated in India 4,000 years ago and has since spread across the world. In 1914, it reached Brazil, where it evolved into Brazilian Jiu-jitsu. This was a ground-based system of fighting which uses submission and grappling techniques, making it possible for a smaller opponent to beat a larger man. The family created Gracie Jiu-jitsu in the 1920s, and after dominating the fight scene of their Brazilian homeland, it was time for the Gracies to prove to the world that their fighting style was the one to beat.
What really gave way to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, it all goes back to the September 1989 issue of Playboy. And Royce Gracie was featured in a very lengthy article in this magazine, and it really spoke of the Gracie Challenge. And when people read this article, they could not believe that this person from Brazil, who was claiming a Japanese art, was going around defeating all these people, saying he was the baddest man on the planet, so on and so forth, and it caused an uproar.
Whilst Torian made the Gracie Challenge, it was his talented younger brother Royce who would have to fight for the family and prove that their boasts were true.
There's only one way to find out if this stuff working, is to get in a ring and fight against a different style. Your stuff is great against somebody your size. How about you fight against a sumo wrestler? There's only one way to find out. Get in the ring against a sumo wrestler.
The Gracies' big chance came with the creation of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, a no-holds-barred fight tournament held in a cage with only two rules: no biting and no eye gouging.
It wasn't going to be, pads or certain rules for karate or taekwondo or kung fu or one of those types of things. So we sat down and we watched it, and what we quickly realized was the fact that not all martial arts are created equal.
And in the early days of the UFC, that was proved to be true, as Royce beat all comers from all styles. Maybe the Gracies were right.
If anyone can be attributed to doing more for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than his older brother Royce, it's Royce. And it's because Royce was the one who actually got out there in that octagon and fought.
I won the Ultimate Fighting Championship 3 times, but it wasn't single fights, it was 3 tournaments.
The most amazing thing about it is that Royce does not look like a fighter. He's not a very big guy. He's not the kind of person that people would fear or people would label to be an ultimate fighter. He's a guy who's got very solid technique, who once again, he believed in his art, and he went out there and he was defeating all of these big people.
Royce Gracie made it look easy. At the first Ultimate Fighting Championship in '93, he made it to the final, but now he would face the so-called world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu faced its biggest challenge yet.
Good fighter. He was probably one of the best ones prepared on that show. Had more experience on the grappling, punching, kicking, all-around fighter.
His techniques are not developed under a defensive strategy. He's more like an offense 100%.
After taking Ken to the ground, Royce shocked the fight world by choking him out. He squeezed Shamrock's air pipe and forced him to tap out, the sign of I quit, or he would face going unconscious.
He just got lost. 56 seconds. That's all it took for me to confuse him.
The Gracies were taking over. Royce won the second Ultimate Fighting Championship, but in the fourth tournament, he would face one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Dan, the B7, stood between the Brazilian and his third UFC title.
By the time I was actually contacted to be in the UFC, I only trained for 5 days. I had been an amateur wrestler for 26 years of rules, of regulations, of sportsmanlike conduct, and all of a sudden to be thrown into something where literally you only have 2 rules to abide by.
Royce was focused but still feared the beast. Although naive about no-holds-barred fighting, Seven had awesome power, and fans considered him a serious threat to Royce's title.
The Seven was 270 pounds. I was 180.
The one thing with Dan that took him from the point where he was in UFC 4 to UFC 5 is getting over the mindset of punching someone.
Even in my first 2 matches, I did not throw any kind of strikes whatsoever. I simply utilized my wrestling skills.
A couple of punches there by Severn, and those hurt.
A few minutes passed in the match before I actually ever threw my first strike, but I had to think about it because I was actually struggling more with my conscience than I was with an opponent at that time.
Those are good shots, and they're hitting cleanly into the ribs.
He's on top of me during the whole fight, took me down the first minute of the fight, and just got on top of me and trying to choke me and trying to throw punches and headbutts.
Gotta believe Royce is starting to get tired. He's carrying the weight.
I had a real difficult time thinking of coming right down dead center of of an individual face because I know of my size and my power that I could hurt someone, and I really didn't want to hurt anybody out there. I was trying to utilize skill in that.
He's taking his time. Jim, how long can Gracie hang in there?
Royce had led Seven into a trap, letting him use up his energy on top, while Royce got himself in a better position to submit Seven. As Seven flagged, Royce applied the winning triangle choke. This is applied by pulling your opponent's arm through your legs and squashing his windpipe on his own arm, forcing him to quit or be choked out.
That's it. Oh!
They were clever tactics from Gracie, and it illustrated Gracie Jiu-jitsu at its best.
Suddenly I turned the whole fight around. Last minute, they couldn't script that fight any better. That was a perfect victory. That was a perfect victory.
Whilst Royce dominated the Ultimate Fighting Championship, another of the clan, this time Manhattan-based cousin Henzo, was also testing Gracie Jiu-jitsu on the world stage.
Henzo Gracie is a man who has no fear. Out of all the other Gracies, Henzo is the one who, it doesn't matter who the opponent is, what they know, how big they are, he's went out there and faced them all.
I have a unique ability to don't be nervous before a fight, and I have the unique ability that never made an excuse after I lost. I believe the man who won must be the one talking, and the one who lost must shut up.
Henzo is a natural, tough fighter. The guy is just tough.
I have a lot of admiration for his skills and heart.
Just like his cousin Royce, Henzo would have to fight the best. And they don't come more dangerous than this man.
Oleg Taktarov, Russian, military Sambo Grand Champion, never defeated by pin or submission.
Taktarov, I always admire him as a fighter. He was a guy who took the most terrible beatings I ever seen a human being taken, and he was able to overcome that and still win the matches,
Both men took a dislike to each other, and there was bad blood in the build-up to the fight. But Henzo couldn't wait to get in the octagon.
He was making jokes on my face, before the fight. And I just look at him, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna maybe take a few whores in a whorehouse here and bring it over, have a party tonight, smoke some pot. I look at him and say, man, don't do it. Because if you do that on Friday, I'm having Kiev chicken for dinner.
The time for talking was over. As Russian and Brazilian Jiu-jitsu came head-to-head, who would be victorious?
The problem was he was caught in a surprise. I knocked him out in less than 60 seconds. I hit him with a heel. He fell back. I stood up. I hit him with the right hand, which I broke my hand on his face. The referee jumped right in, and I didn't have to hurt him. You know, so I was glad there was just a cut.
And I remember I grabbed the foot, and I lost it. And normally I can hold the ankle. And I was just kind of like so mad with myself that I had no strength in my hand. So I concentrated just on holding this foot second time, and I put all my attention there, and Henzo saw me putting all attention to this foot, so just with another foot just kick me, that's it. It's very simple.
A broken hand meant Taktarov couldn't get Henzo in a painful ankle lock, but despite getting knocked out cold, the disorientated Russian wanted to continue the contest.
He didn't realize what happened, and he kept complaining. Like, I remember after I was doing an interview, he was behind me. Why you running away? You have to get back here, the fight's not over yet. Later he saw on the tape, and he came over and apologized. He said, yeah, I was out.
The winner is Henzo.
The next fight for Henzo was a memorable night, both in and out of the ring, as he faced Eugenio Tadeo, a real slippery customer.
The guy that I was fighting, he oiled himself before the fight, and he dried. Once he started sweating, all the oil came out. So what happened, you couldn't hold, it looked like they're holding a fish, like a soap. The only way that I had to control him was putting him against the fence. And every time I put him against the fence, I had to lean and place my head on the fence, and his body's outside to start kicking my head. So that thing was getting very frustrating. Everything was like, for the fact that they were hitting me, and I couldn't finish him for the fact that he was slippery like hell. In one of those moments, this guy who was kicking me a lot put his head right above the fence to curse at me right here. And I pretend that I'm looking at my opponent, and I put my arms up, and I hit him right on the nose. And that broke a riot, and they broke the whole arena. People shooting everywhere, you know, that was one of my favorites.
Up next, we meet the Gracie Hunter on a one-man mission to destroy Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And the undefeated Gracie he'd most like to meet in combat. It's Hickson. This is Ultimate Warriors. We are taking a closer look at the Brazilian fighting family, the Gracies, who took the fight world by storm. So the Gracies lived up to their challenge and proved to the world just how good Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was. But one man proved they are not unbeatable. Known as the Gracie Hunter, he is Kazushi Sakuraba.
He's like a matador, you know, he's one step ahead of you.
Sakuraba was unique in the way he was fighting, and that's what was working for him.
Kazushi Sakuraba is another anomaly, certainly from the standpoint of his background.
He is a very good wrestler. He was a high school wrestler, or like top in Japan. And face it, the Gracies are not strikers. They're ground fighters. So for Sakuraba, it was easy, the game plan. Keep it on the feet, stay on your feet.
In terms of the style, he frustrated the Gracies. A lot of the Brazilians fell prey to the Japanese because the Brazilians, they definitely prescribe to, I set you up in a very particular position, and then from that, I will move to a submission. Japanese don't do that. They just go for it.
He's a brilliant guy. He's very exciting to watch.
You can see the quietness when he fights. You see that with the Gracies, but he was just non-expression, very strong, very pure, and again a martial artist that takes his art to the mat.
Gracie victim number one for Sakuraba was Hoyler, Royce's brother. Sakuraba won by a technical knockout when the referee stopped the fight after 13 minutes. The The Gracie family then sent in Royce to try and restore family pride, but the quick submission they were hoping for didn't happen. Sakuraba pushed Royce to the limit in a match that lasted over 90 energy-draining minutes.
I felt like it was not Sakuraba won the fight, it was Royce lost the fight.
Royce had difficulty getting Sakuraba in a position to submit him. The Japanese fighter's cunning tactics of keeping his distance frustrated Royce, and by refusing to fight by Gracie's rules, he took control of the match. The Gracie corner looked on, concerned as the fight, now 90 minutes old, took its toll on Royce. As Sakuraba returned to his stool, the Gracie corner threw in the towel. Sakuraba had collected his second Gracie scalp.
He's throwing in the towel.
I don't see him as a great technician. I don't see him, nothing special about him, only he's calm and he's very, a lot of heart. And so far, nobody did a very good job on him.
After beating Royce, the Gracie hunter had Henzo Gracie in his sights. And until the dying moments of the match, the hunter had become the hunted.
I was beating him up to the last 17 seconds. But what happened is today with the rules and the gloves, it turns the fight into a more even match. I had him in the back and he grabbed me by the glove and he wrapped my arm. When I tried to yank it, my elbow popped out. But Sakuraba is a very far fighter. It was good that I lost to him. It's like I didn't mind, I would be very mad if I had lost to someone that I didn't admire, and he was an exception. I really admire him as a fighter. And I remember that right after he said, look, that was the best fight I had. I would like to fight you again. He asked me to fight me again, So that was very good, and I'm looking forward in the near future to be stepping in the ring with him again.
Sakuraba added a fourth Gracie win to his collection in beating Hyan by decision in 2000. He had proved that the Gracies were only human and cemented his place in fight history as the Gracie hunter. You've met the rest. Now, meet the best.
I breathe, eat, think jiu-jitsu all my life. And it's just like, without jiu-jitsu, I cannot even live from my bed, it's just everything for me.
While Sakuraba proved that the Gracies were defeatable, it cannot be denied that the family have set the standards in modern martial arts. And no one more than the mystical and undefeated Rickson Gracie.
In a concept, I believe the mind is like a parachute. It's just working when it's open. So you have to have an open mind and keep looking around to see what things you can take from to update your knowledge.
Rickson Gracie, I think, on many levels, he's almost kind of like the Marlon Brando of martial artists. A lot of people like to romanticize the body of work that he's done.
When somebody describes me as a hero, or I feel flattered about, because it's something you achieve not because you want to achieve, but people recognize you as that.
Age 36, Rickson left his home in California to embark on a professional fight career. He became the first of the family to test his skills in Japan by entering the infamous Vale Tudo, or Anything Goes tournament.
I remember some of the original Vale Tudo events and talking about people fighting with a broken limb, and fights lasting hours, not 20 minutes, which is considered a long time, 30 minutes, but a couple of hours.
He was the first one on the sport. He was the first Gracie to fight in Japan.
I was invited to go there, and I helped the people to create the rule and the setup for the event. I was participating of the first two events, and that's kind of brought a good reputation to not just to the event himself, but also to the Gracie family.
Rickson won Vale Tudo 1994 with ease, demolishing final opponent Bud Smith in 39 seconds. The following year, Rickson defended his crown and, after winning his first 2 fights, he faced Japanese fighter Yuki Nakai in the final. Despite suffering horrendous facial damage in earlier rounds, the brave Nakai did not flinch from the Gracie challenge awaiting him.
Through the TVs in the locker room, we kind of follow other fighters competing and see how it goes. And I felt like a display of a very brave guy, small but with a lion heart.
Rickson knew that the easy way to victory was to open up cuts on his battered opponent's face, but he did not attempt one punch to the head in that final. He preferred instead to defeat his foe by submission, again showing the skill and dexterity of Gracie Jiu-jitsu. The Gracies set the challenge to prove that Gracie Jiu-jitsu was the complete combat martial art. We will probably not see such domination in the fight world again, but without them, the world of martial arts would be very different. It is unlikely that such contrasting styles of combat would have been tested against each other at all.
We did it. We did what everybody at the beginning thought was going to be impossible. Put 2 men to fight on live TV.
A positive role model for so many young people who wants to engage in martial arts or just wants to get the information to apply in themselves in life.
Brazilian Jiu-jitsu would definitely reign supreme compared to someone else who maybe studied another art for many months or many years.
There's a lot of fighters out there that become part of the history. We are the history.
Just keep yourself in shape, train a lot of jiu-jitsu because we're coming back stronger than ever.